There's a petition out on the website that we put out for people to request to join, because the licensing board is not enforcing the licensing laws when it comes to wetland studies, stream studies, any critical areas studies, shoreline studies, including marine shorelines. And it explains what it's about, but the main thing is that these studies are being done by unlicensed, sometimes people with no training whatsoever. They could be planners. They could be somebody's received 3 days worth of training and claims that they're a specialist in that area. But our licensing laws are really clear that these are the practice of geology and the specialty sciences of hydrogeology or engineering geology. So we put a petition out there for people to read, and if they wanted to put their name on it to tell the licensing board, we want you to enforce the geologist licensing laws, that we would eventually submit it once we at least got 1,000 of them together, because we're trying to get the licensing board to do this. We even went to the licensing board's March 6, 2012 meeting and testified before it, and the staff really quashed them and said the board can only deal with complaints, which is not true. The WAC is actually controlled by the board, the Washington State Administrative Code, which is the rules that the board generates. And so the staff is from what we can tell, misinforming the board members. And we've got proof that they're doing a lot of things behind the scenes that they shouldn't be doing. And they're actually making decisions for the board on their own, actually in violation of the revised Code of Washington.
And the staff are not geologists, right?
No. No, they're under appointed people, the director of licensing, basically. So anyway, the petitions are back there. We got requests to have some more petitions. There's also another sheet that goes with it, tells you who to send them to. It explains more in detail what it's about. And so if you want to circulate them, get them around, and you know how to get them back to Ed, that's great, and that'll be fantastic. And just so you know, yeah, we did do, Charles Dalton ran into a lot of problems. I agreed to do the wetland delineation and, well, actually wetland identification studies on his property for free, which we did. Some people said we got paid $20,000 for it. No, we got paid nothing. But we got reimbursed for it in other ways, and that's what was important, and that's why we did it. And we saw that there was persecution going on, that things were not done correctly, and that's why we did what we did. And for some reason, it triggered a big response. And yes, Mr. Anderson did challenge our findings. And the county never sent us anything about it. They omitted us completely when they disregarded our findings and everything else. So as of, I believe, last night, I submitted our response to the county and to ecology. And it's out there, and it'll hopefully make a big difference. So anyway, that's it for me.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Well, hi, and thanks for having us. We love coming to this group. My name is Scott Roberts. I'm here with Glenn Morgan. We're with the Freedom Foundation out of Olympia. If you have a hard time telling us apart, Glenn's the smart one and I'm the good-looking one. So what is it about government that wants to know everything about us, but when we want to know everything about government, we can't get that information? It bothers me. And there's this idea of the reasonable expectation of privacy that Rick just mentioned. And by the way, thanks, Rick, for having us come. So, for instance, I'm not a lawyer, and neither is Glenn. We're guys that get involved and we train about how to be effective citizen activists primarily, and do some policy research as well. But the one thing that we do a lot is we do videotaping. And so I'm being videotaped right now here, and I'm in a public forum. And I have no reasonable expectation of privacy, so I can be videotaped. I can tell them, no, please don't videotape me, and they can still do it if they want. If I was in the restroom here in this restaurant and he brought the videotape in, it's a public place, but I have a reasonable expectation of privacy, so he could not videotape me in that location. And so at what point do we have reasonable expectation of privacy on our own property, and where does that expectation of privacy and property rights cross? And I have to go back, and every time I talk about property rights and I think about property rights, I think about John Locke. And I know every one of you that hears me talk about John Locke. And In 1689, he wrote a document called the Second Treatise of Government, where he started to lay out the theories of property rights. And we talk about property rights in these groups, and our minds almost automatically go to real estate. And it's not real estate. It's, as John Locke argued, we have a natural law and a natural order. And natural law is we all gain our rights directly from the Creator. And the natural order is that in nature there's an order. So man is at the top, and then every species within every species is equal. So all men are created equal. That all came out of John Locke. But what he said is we obtain our rights directly from our Creator. We own our body in total, and we own all of the labor and all the products of our labor from our body. That encompasses our property rights, and now in more modern terms, even our intellectual property. The story that you saw that we did on Charles Dalton was an interesting story, because Charles Dalton clearly was a violator of some land use ordinances. He built a barn without a permit. The county would like to argue that he built it in a wetland, which is completely erroneous and really irrelevant to the argument. But he built a barn on his property. He didn't get a permit. He admits that. He was trying to get an after-the-fact permit. But what happened in that case was the executive director of the Friends of San Juan, Stephanie Buffum, took pictures of his property. But if you go out to the property, you see that she clearly trespassed to get those pictures of his property. It's marked where the end of the county road is. She traveled well beyond the end of the county road onto his property, took pictures of his property. And in San Juan County, the Department of Ecology and the Friends of the San Juan they're losing it quickly by the minute, but they had a huge outsized influence on the county government. Charles Dalton's neighbor, Charles Dalton's little farm is on 4 acres. His neighbor is a super wealthy Wall Street banker, big donor of the Friends of the San Juans, with 130 acres right next to Charles Dalton. His gate to his property is here in Charles Dalton's barn, looking kind of like a meth house. Hey, Charles Dalton's a great guy, but he is not a very good contractor, let me tell you. Is right next to the gate. So every time this wealthy donor comes out of his gate, he's got to look at this barn. So what he said, he said, hey, I'm a big donor of the Friends of the San Juans. I'm going to call the Friends of the San Juans. And the Friends of San Juans then rush out, take pictures of them, start complaining, and they use their influence, and now the code compliance guy comes rushing out and slapping all kinds of land use violations on poor old Charles Dalton. If it wasn't for that trespass, and if it wasn't for two things, the trespass and the outsized influence of the Friends of the San Juans, Charles Dalton would be a happy organic farmer on San Juan Island doing his thing. Be no problem. Those types of things, you know, if you want government to come out on your property, hey, go for it. Let them come out. But if you don't want them to come out on your property, you have to exercise your rights to not allow them to trespass or anybody else to trespass. And that gets into another discussion. I would recommend that this group get a couple people from the Freedom Foundation that are experts in constitutional law and in privacy. Our state constitution is very strong in privacy laws, to come talk to you about specifically trespass and how to protect yourself in trespass. That's going to go beyond our discussion, and also is going to go a little bit beyond my expertise, although I could talk about it a little bit. And also, there's another gentleman out there, Alex Hayes, who's also an expert in constitutional law and also in the particular area of privacy. Do you want to add anything to the Charles Dalton right now?
Yeah, I should. Yeah. So, since I was the face of that particular video, I want to talk about the power of a story, because that story made a massive impact in that community, and it's very hard to understand the significance of it. And we've done some of these stories. We'd actually done some other stories in San Juan County. For whatever reason, and that's a lot longer than we normally would make those videos. We usually try to make them about five minutes, maybe a little less. And for whatever reason, and it really took off. But what's interesting is that that video stirred up the Department of Ecology. The top 11 employees, from the director to lead various departments, 11 of them spent 2 weeks running a PR campaign against that video. I mean, the entire Department of Ecology, they created blogs, they had press releases, they had meetings upon meetings upon meetings just over that video. That wasn't even the Department of Ecology was a little bit of a sideshow there. But I mean, that really tied them up. The other thing is, it totally caused a big wrinkle for the critical area ordinance process in San Juan County, which is now getting more and more delayed. And the final thing that was really quite an impact was on this Friends of San Juan, which had become this untouchable entity that was just out of control all over the county, turning in people, property owners all over the place. And people were so afraid of being bullied by this environmental group that they knew there was a problem, but they were afraid to speak up about it. And so in this case, one guy came forward. We had a community meeting up there, and literally 80 people came there and started getting up and confronting Friends of San Juan, calling them spies, accusing them of trespassing, accusing them of destroying the community, of losing their way, of being fascist. It was amazing. This is San Juan County. This was Orcas Island, of all places, with the candles and the rocks. Yeah, it really is. I mean, this was a meeting with candles and rocks and a little trust circle, you know? And this is what was happening. They were being... you know, and then of course we got that on video, and we produced that video, and we ran that up there now too. And then we're on, it's been an ongoing story. And whenever I ride the ferry now in the San Juans, yeah, they recognize me up there. But it's that little impact. It made a huge deal. The whole conversation has changed. We just had a town hall meeting up there at the Eagle Forum. 200 people came to hear about, on Orcas Island, right in the middle of the Shakespeare Festival. 200 people came to hear about the critical area ordinance and the problems that it is there. That one story can change a community. And so we have to find those stories in King County. And as a fifth generation guy who grew up in King County, I live in Thurston now, but I grew up here, I can tell you that this place is littered with them. That there's 1,000 stories out there, and we just have to find them, tell them well, and promote them. And the little story that we did there about the benchmarking is a little example in Seattle, but play in their backyard. You know, don't give up on Seattle. Go wherever the stories are, and find the people, and be willing to find people who don't think the way you do, who don't maybe act the way or even believe what you do, but they've gotten abused by government too. Government can't help itself. King County cannot help itself. They're creating victims every day by their activities, and they're addicted to it. And so those victims, we need to tell their stories. And when we tell those stories, we're going to change the community very quickly. So I just think, you know, and we've made funny videos, songs now, up there. Instead of King of the Road, it's, you know, Friends of San Juan, it's Spies of San Juan. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that, and it just rolls out, and the story keeps going, and every part of that story is bad for the other side. And that is how you change the dialogue, you change the narrative, and you own the story. It isn't about the environment. They lost sight of that a long time ago. This is about abusive government harm, putting people last as policy, and pretending to be environmental, but really just all about power, money, and control. So that was a good example. That story, we're doing more and more of those, and you'll see a lot more coming out. But more importantly, we want to teach other people how to do them. The Freedom Foundation can't do all of this, but we can teach everybody how to do these stories, and you can find these stories yourself.